Working It Out, a podcast show about diversity, equity, and inclusion in our workplaces, our communities, and our lives. A show where we put diversity and inclusion to work.
Got problems on the job, we're working it out. With workplace got you stressing, we're working it out. With yeah, we're working it out, working it out, working it out.
Hi, I'm Dr. Vanessa Weaver, your host of Working It Out. Thank you for joining me today. Recently, there has been a push to support producers, independent producers, such as Black producers, Latina producers, Asian producers, in telling their own story. And not only has there been a recent push for these producers, but it's been successful. For example, Procter & Gamble has an initiative called Widen the Screen, where they're supporting the storyteller of these producers that are Black, Latina, Asian, and women. And guess what? We're going to see those stories. But with the recent anti-woke, anti-diversity, anti-affirmative action, there's a concern that this negative movement, that this negative push would erode the success that we've achieved in having these independent producers tell their story. And we know that historically, we've had white producers who've told Black stories, who've told Asian stories, who've told Latina stories. Not that that's completely wrong in and of itself, but we feel like we've demonstrated that there's a different perspective, a valuable perspective in the stories being told by producers of their own community. So today we're going to explore that. We're going to explore what is the value of having Black stories produced and told by Black producers. And we're going to do that by having this incredible couple, Chuck and Bree West, to join us today. They started OCTET Productions, an independent Black-owned production company. And they've been telling Black stories that reflect the Black family as well as our Black communities. So I want to welcome Bree and Chuck West to Working It Out.
Thank you for having us. We're so glad to be here.
I'm so excited. I mean, you all are the new hot power couple, and you're doing so many interesting things. I know that you founded your company, OCTET Productions, in 2015, but in a really short period of time, I mean, an amazingly short period of time, you produced a series of shows or TV film called the Wesley Family Series that is aired on BET. How many years now in a row? 3?
It's going to be third. We're on our third year now. So we're going soon to film our third project, our third film.
And I think you're going to film that in South Africa. Am I correct?
Yes, Johannesburg and Durban.
Oh, that's amazing. Now, I my second job, I carry bags. I just want you to...
That's my first job.
That's your first job. And that also, you were the original producers of Hush. And I think, Bree, you call this a salacious series. That's filming on all Black. So you're and in fact, Bree, I think you were just nominated last year for the NAACP Image Award for writing.
I was for the first Wesley Christmas, the first installation. Yes.
Well, congratulations. And I must say, Chuck, who I've known for many years now, is really the money man for OCTET Productions. I mean, he's the one that does all the negotiations, make sure that the money is in and that everything is flowing right, so Chuck, and also, you're a showrunner and a producer. So you all are really a very dynamic and complementary couple. So let me ask you, how did you get into this business? Because it's not a business that many of us are in. So what's your story?
Well, for me, I started 30 plus years ago in the theatrical world. I started touring stage plays across the country. So when I met Bree in 2013, we decided to create a company together. And we started with stage plays and transformed stage plays into film and television series.
Yeah. And my experience was I was representing a lot of talent in the sports world. And I had the opportunity to work with Wanda Durant, Kevin Durant's mother. And when he won the MVP that year, he gave this infamous speech and said, "Mom, you're the real MVP."
I remember
And
that.
the world, it went viral. Everyone was like, "You're the
Yeah.
real MVP. You're the real MVP." So Wanda said, "I really want to tell my story, Bree. How can we get the story out there?" So Chuck and I kind of looked at the relationships we had in Hollywood, and that was our first film project that we worked on together from inception. And I was a co-executive producer, Chuck was a co-producer of the project, and we worked with Flavor Unit, which was Queen Latifah and Shakim Kapoor's a production company.
Mm.
And it was great starting off. We got the script together, we hired the writer, we approved, we had script control, so we were happy about that. But then when it went time to actually go into film production, we didn't hear anything. And so the next time we were involved in anything was when they called us to do press to promote this project. And when we saw the project, I was pretty devastated, not because it wasn't a great project, the acting was amazing, but the locations. It was supposed to be based in Prince George's County, and we're both from Prince George's County, and nothing about that set, about the geographical topography, nothing reflected Prince George's County, and it probably wouldn't because it was filmed in Canada. And at that point, I said, "Chuck, how is it that we can make sure we tell authentic stories? How can we make sure the integrity is right?" And what'd you say?
When she looked at me, she was almost in tears.
Yeah.
And when she asked me the questions, I told her, I said, we need to do it ourselves. And that's what we started doing.
And that's how we formed OCTET. And of course, OCTET is OCT, the Latin prefix of 8, which is a reflection of our 8 children and our beautifully blended family. He brought 4 boys to the marriage. I brought 4 girls. So OCTET, the number 8 turned on its side, is the infinity sign. And that's why our logo is the infinity sign. Not only is it about our love for our family, but God's love for us and our commitment to our people. So that's how we came up with OCTET.
Well, you all have skipped over a whole lot of information from meeting in 2013 to having 8 kids in 2015. So we got
Right.
to go back and figure out what happened in these 2 years. I mean, to bring in 8 kids, but we'll get to that towards the end of our show today. So I know that you all were so committed to the authenticity and the correctness of that film and other films. So what is your mission for OCTET?
I think our mission is to tell our stories, because whether we want to acknowledge it or not, our archaeological history or our stories in the future, when people want to see how Black people lived in 2020, they're going to look at movies, they're going to look at television, they're going to look at reflections of what is present, to look back at what Black people or how Black people lived back then, just like we do.
Yeah.
A lot of times. And so with that, when we're the producers, we're able to ensure accuracy and honesty, and also levels of pride that may not be gleaned from other races, just because it's our story. It's our stories, and they're diverse and they're rich and they're valuable and they're beautiful. And for us, it's just important to make sure we leave a legacy of diverse stories that reflect us as a people accurately.
And for us, we're at a place right now, and have been for a while, where we can choose our projects. So we are very particular about choosing projects that we produce that show our people in a good light.
And even when it's a little salacious or a little janky, it still shows us as upwardly mobile people, and people who, are flawed, maybe flawed, but still authentically us. We're not looking like a raceless group of people. We have our little spice on it.
I know that OCTET has a commitment to telling stories across the diaspora. And in fact, as you noted, you're going to film the Wesley Christmas Family movie in South Africa. So why that commitment? I mean, isn't it enough to show the variety of stories of Blacks in America? I mean, that's a pretty big territory. Why the diaspora?
You want to go? Yeah. Okay. I think that we've been so isolated as a people for so many generations. And I think we've been socialized to be in our own Blackness, whether it's the United States and African Americans, Black people in the country, or West Indians, or even Africans, South Africans, West Africans, East Africans. We all are kind of, everyone, it's all over the country. All over the world. When you think about how many places we are and how separated we are, what is the most innocuous way to bring us together? And I think it's entertainment, because entertainment is innocuous. It's not political. It could be, but it's very fun and lighthearted, but also those subliminal messages are real. And in order for us to unify as a diaspora, it's very important for us to reach out. And we felt like as OCTET, we could be some of the pioneers jumping out there and really developing an authentic relationship. It's not just a one-off, but this really merging our cultures and giving us all the opportunity to see different different members of our diaspora and how they live and what they're doing, because there's power in numbers, there's strength in numbers.
Well, I'm
And so
fascinated by that because, as you know, on Netflix and some of the streaming channels, they do have movies and that are produced by Africans, on the continent. And it's interesting as I look at some of the storylines, they're not markedly different than the storylines here about, richness and being spoiled and having all of the luxuries and, all of that. So I'm not always sure that we get those authentic storylines. You know what I'm saying? It seems like many of the stories to me feel very commercial and very to be expected. And so, what is it about your commitment to telling those stories in the diaspora that might be different than what's being shown now?
But for us, well, what's being shown now is just basically African productions about Africa, American productions about America. What we're doing is merging the two cultures. So our project is going to intertwine the African family with the Wesley family.
Oh, I
so
see.
the difference is we're not keeping the both entities separate. We're bringing it together.
I see.
yes, and it's going to be exciting because not only are we bringing the talent together and bringing South African crew and African American crew, but we're merging everybody together. We're bringing, well, I already said our crew. Let me restate that. Sure. Aside from just bringing the talent from America and blending and merging them with the talent from South Africa, we're also bringing some of our department heads from America to come over and work and film in South Africa with a South African crew. So it's going to be a very, very significant mixture of both South African and African talent from every level of the equation. So we're excited about that.
So you're in front and behind the camera.
Absolutely.
You're controlling, because I've just recalled when Chuck said, we're at a point where you can choose.
Yeah,
that's pretty significant. When I heard that, it's like, oh, you're really running it. I mean, you are making those core decisions, the important decisions about how all of this stuff operates.
100%. 100%.
So how were you able to get there so quickly? You got together in 2015. You had 8 children. We're going to talk about that in a minute. And then you launched this series of films on BET and Hush. And now, I mean, how were you able to be so successful so quickly in this competitive industry that doesn't always welcome people that are Black complexion?
It's always interesting when you say that, because we were just talking about this last night. Like, people are like, oh my gosh, you've done so well. You're doing great things. And we're looking like, we have so much to do. Yeah. Like, there's just still so much to do. So it's hard to really think about it as we've created such success. I think Chuck and I just are very clear about what our mission is. And we're very spiritual. We know that we're trusting God to direct our path. And so, it's one of those things where maybe it's holy boldness. We just step out on, okay, well, we need to do this. And I think next year we need to do this. And I think we need to do this. And how about this? And the thing that's so cool is, like, we're partners and we're both like, go, 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 go. Neither one of us really have too much break in us. So we just keep going. And because we feel like there's so much still to do.
And we walk by faith. We make our decisions by faith, and we know that everything that we do is a blessing.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. And so, when you think about walking by faith, how did that help you navigate some of the big challenges that you encountered trying to form this business. In fact, share with us a couple of those big challenges that you had to overcome.
Well, let's let him start that one because the first one is in his lane.
Well, for us, the one of the biggest challenges when we first got started with OCTET was raising money.
That part.
And we asked a whole lot of people to bring money to the table to help us finance this first project. And most of our answers were, you go ahead and get it done, and then we'll come and take a look at it. So we were looking at each other like, how are we going to get this done? And again, prayed about it. We started asking friends and family, and then we started raising the money ourselves. And we put all the money that we had into it, and we started investing in OCTET, and it was a hit.
Yeah, it was a hit, and we're grateful because at the end of the day, we were able to kind of leverage some of the skills that we had in our other lives and take them in and speak with knowledge because we understood the importance of doing the due diligence and the research and making sure that if we don't know what we're doing in certain respects, we have the resources in place and the people willing to support what we're trying to do so that we make sure that our next step is always our best step. And so
you had the challenge of raising money, and it's interesting because in this, particularly after the George Floyd incident, there was such a overwhelming outcry for us to have Black movies and TV shows and programs that reflected the life, the lived experience of Black people, and for that point, other groups like Asians and Latinos, but particularly Blacks. And so the perception was that there was a lot of money being thrown out there to really support that. And based on what you're saying, that wasn't necessarily the case.
Well, that was before George Floyd was after we had started, and by the time that had happened, we were on our way. So after the first project, we knew how to make it pretty. We didn't exactly know how to make it entertaining. We relied on a script from a colleague of ours who said, "Oh, this is what the networks are looking for." And so we tweaked it a little bit to make it at least palatable so we could shoot it comfortably. But then it was kind of very flat in terms of the way that the story read. There was no nothing juicy, nothing spicy, just really kind of like womp womp. But it looked very good. And it was enough for BET to see it and appreciate our style of producing and filming. And they really believed in us. And shoot, they gave us one project, and the first project we did as a co-production deal. And then after that, they came on set while we were shooting that first project and immediately gave us a second project that we shot a few months later. And it's kind of been off to the races after that, because when you do good work and you're passionate about your work and it reflects, people like it. And our movies do very, very well. People seem to respond very well to it. And we're grateful for it because from our perspective, it's something that we really love doing. We're very passionate about. And if we already lock you in with entertainment, then we could maybe throw some education in too. Like, for example, this Wesley Christmas project that we're shooting in South Africa, we're talking about apartheid. We're talking about civil rights. We're talking about similarities that as a race and as a diaspora, we've all encountered, maybe in different times and different settings. But at the end of the day, the obstacles we've encountered as a diaspora, by and large, are very similar. And so that's why we think it's going to be the natural course of progression to go straight into something like this so that we can make it fun and engaging, but still teach while we can, since so many people in this world are trying to stop us from learning about our obstacles that we've had to endure and encounter as Black people, and removing diversity and inclusion from very critical spaces where it's necessary and still so necessary. And racism is just as prevalent as it's ever been.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, have you been impacted by some of this anti-affirmative action, anti-diversity, anti-woke sentiment that's really growing and blossoming? Have you all have to deal with that?
I don't know that we have directly, because we've been working with BET and All Black Network, and we've also worked with TV One. But as those are Black centered projects to the core. But what we are noticing is that funding for projects has shifted, just the climate of what's going on. And unfortunately, when finances, these companies, these networks are part of bigger entities, bigger studios. And when finances become tight, these networks have to pull the reins in a little bit. And so sometimes we're starting to see where the impact is trickling down to the independent producers.
Well, I promised our audience you were gonna help us figure out how you met in 2013 and started OCTET in 2015, and between that time and now you had 8 kids, and
We
you're
had a
still
kid.
married, and you seem very happily married. I know every time I'm around you, you're still beaming like newlyweds. So let me ask you, because you're working together, and I know you all do different and related things, but how do you balance? How do you deal with the power dynamic between the two of you? I mean,
I always win.
you always
I
win.
never went.
It's
I
like,
just never
no,
went.
that's not true. Not true at all. We have different lanes.
You
We
know,
have different.
We are very clear what our strong points are and what our
mhm.
shortcomings are.
Right.
She is dynamic when it comes to the creative side of the company, anything that has to do with the creative. And like you said earlier, I'm the logistics, numbers guy, budgets, and make sure we stay on point as far as the finances. So we try to stay in each one of our lanes, although she always tries to maneuver her way over into my lane.
Ah,
I just got, I just gotta push her back over every now and then.
It's like
mhm.
a slight nudge.
But outside of that, and that's how we make it work because we know that okay, well, when it comes to creative, I'll call Bree, talk to Bree.
Yeah.
Like they'll come to me and ask me questions about okay, creative. I'm like, you're not getting me in trouble with that.
Yeah, no, we kind of know what lanes they are. And, even when I get onto it and start weaving into his lane, it's like, okay, I know I'm kind of treading on thin
Yeah.
ice, so I probably need to get off the ice. But the thing is, it's like both of us knowing how passionate we are, we don't really argue at all. Like we may, go back and forth in terms of,
Different points of
sharing our
view.
position on something. But the reality is ultimately we have the same goal, which is the success of the company and the success of our projects.
Most of the time, she's asking me for more money to get more
Yeah.
more creative in a project.
Yeah.
Well, I know our time is closing, but we started this talking about the importance of Black producers or any same race producer producing stories, their own stories about their experience. And what would be, if you had to give a point of advice, a piece of advice to
Mhm.
someone interested in going into this arena, what would you tell them?
Never let anybody tell you that you can't do what you really want to do, and just push forward.
Yeah. And I think from my perspective, take time to really learn what you're trying to do so that you understand. You don't just walk into it blindly. Sometimes I think because it's entertainment, and a lot of times people who aren't familiar with the business, they see actors on stage, and so or on camera or on in on the television, and they're like, I want to do that, I want to do that. Well, it's got to be more. Follow that up with getting the training. Follow that up with doing the research and being prepared, because if you come into the business already kind of understanding what the business is about and how much work is involved and what it looks like, and that all this glitters is not always
Go.
shiny gold, and
Mhm.
sometimes it's just a whole lot of shiny trash that has to be parsed through and a lot of work
Shiny
needs to be
trash.
done.
I like
I mean,
that.
in the sense that there's always, I think there's a misperception about this entertainment business. There's a lot of work for every minute of television you're seeing on TV or on a film. There are hours and hours of preparation. There's hours of research. There's hours of resource. I mean, there's significant resources that go into making
Mhm.
that show up the way that it does. And so I think the more you know about the industry, the more you learn and really research before you want to jump into it, the better prepared you'll be so that you can, navigate your way through it, because it's definitely doable and it's definitely fulfilling, but there's a lot of work to it. So you just have to come in knowing that it's not just all shiny,
Glitz and
sweet and
glamour,
everything.
right? Well, I really appreciate you and Chuck sharing those tips, because we did an interview with Les Brown, and I will invite our viewers to go back and pick that up. But he was talking about these 4 principles on a power to be you. And the first two that he talked about were the two that you all just cited, which was number one, have some passion about what it is you want to do. You know, like, I mean, when you think about the question, what is my why? Be able to answer that, but more importantly, feel it. And that's what I heard you say, Chuck. And then the second, Bree, was to be prepared. You know, it's nothing like making the investment and being prepared, studying, understanding your industry, understanding how it operates. And that's what Les talks about. Make the investment in your own preparation so that you can pursue your passion more fully. So I thank you all too for those really real life examples. They're very, very, very important. And I guess it's time for me to wrap up. I knew it would not be enough time for us when we were talking today. I knew that when we started, I tried to cull it down to the 30-minute session because you all are so dynamic and so interesting. And I followed you, and I just love the quality of your work and the heart that you put behind the work and the investment that you make in this community, the DMV, which is DC, Maryland, and Northern Virginia. I mean, so you really do work and you've made us proud. So I'm going to sign off, and I just like to wish our viewers a safe, productive, and what we call Be Happy Week. I'm Dr. Vanessa Weaver, your host of Working It Out. Goodbye.
Got problems on the job, we're working it out. Workplace got you stressing, we're working it out. Yeah, we're working it out, working it out, working it out.